So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector. And today we have Phil Ring. He's the guitar player and vocalist for the band The Gorge. They're a band that, if you like bands like Mastodon and that type of like sludgy bands, Between the Buried and Me, and other like psychedelic prog bands, you will dig them. They have an album that's coming out at the end of July, and we're here to talk all about it. So, Phil, how are you today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, yeah, I discovered the band recently, and I like the name The Gorge. And uh, when I listened to the promo, it was saying like for fans of this type of band. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to it. So I know that you have put out two albums previously and an EP, and the last album came out in 2016.
Yep.
So it's been a while. So for you, obviously we have things that happen that obviously probably delayed that third album.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so and I was listening to the new album plus the older ones, and I can tell like there's a little bit of progression. Like you were like the first album was like the prehistoric relapse sounded like very like more harsher
Yep.
than the one that you're releasing now. The one that you're releasing now, it has those harsh elements, but it has more like a psychedelic experimental nature to it. So for you, being the vocalist and guitar player in the band, like what direction did you wanted to take the band on this new release?
The direction was kind of the like kind of a natural progression of what we've always been kind of doing, which is essentially kind of pushing ourselves musically and sonically and saying like, okay, let's keep exploring these kinds of things from like a songwriting element where it's like, uh, how far can we go from the last thing? We've always liked. I feel like there's obvious the progression is obvious when you listen to the albums kind of back to back, but for us it's felt like very natural of this like, well, this is just how we've continued to write. um it wasn't necessarily like a conscious thing that we said, oh, we have to go this way, but I think just as we've kind of like grown as musicians and people, it's just kind of naturally gone to like, well, that's how far can we push this to challenge ourselves, especially musically. That's usually a big thing for us, is to just say, can we do this? Like, is this technically or thematically or just songwriting wise, like, can we continue to grow while still retaining kind of the core sound elements that we've always kind of liked from bands that are influences for us.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying with that, and I know you've already released like three tracks out of the new album that's coming out. You released Beneath the Crust, Synapse Misfire, which actually opens the album, and A Decision Was Made.
Mhm.
Uh, what can you tell us about each of those three tracks, and why did you pick those in particular?
So interestingly, those three songs we felt were, at least on this album, pretty like represent a pretty good scope of like what we sound like. I think they all have their own kind of unique elements to them that represent all of the kind of things that we personify as a band. Beneath the Crust in particular is kind of an interesting one because it's actually the oldest song that we have on the record. It's probably, I think we were playing it around the time we released our last album, Thousand Year Fire. So I think it's almost 7 years old as a song. And then, as you were saying, many factors have come in terms of why it took so long to kind of to get the album out. But that one in particular, like I was saying, we've been playing it for a really long time, and kind of back to what I was talking about before, in terms of pushing ourselves musically. That one in particular has been one where there's a very really long extended middle section of this kind of fast double picking thing that is technically for us one of the harder things that we've done. It's a forearm burner workout from a guitar player standpoint, where we're just going tremolo picking for, or not tremolo picking, but just kind of double picking for a couple minutes at a time. And so that one has always been really, really fun to play from that. And that also set section in that song is also kind of just our MO for a lot of things, which is to take an idea, like a thematic musical idea, and stretch it out as long as we can while still trying to keep it interesting, where that doesn't become boring or repetitive. It is repetitive, but in a way that how can we build this dynamically? How can we change the texture and timbre of these things to still keep it interesting to the listener? And we picked that one to go first because, well, it's got a nice mix of everything in terms of the first single release, I should say. Um, it's a longer song, but it's got, like I was saying before, everything that we kind of want to have as a band, kind of like an aggressive sound, but also um, kind of this different thing of having like major chord sounding things against a heavy music backdrop that we like that kind of juxtaposition of sounds and things like that. Yeah, so Synapse Misfire kind of goes the other way where it's a little shorter, but it's also a very kind of technical song. We end up doing a lot of that stuff where the kind of the progressive element is like, well, let's play some riffs that sound and feel weird, and can we make those still kind of be accessible to kind of the listener in that way. That's kind of another core tenet of the band is like we love very technical progressive music. My favorite bands are Meshuggah, Botch, Dillinger, kind of like these classic heavy progressive hardcore and metal bands. But the things that we've always loved about those types of bands, of those of that ilk, is that while they're technical, they're still songs. There's plenty of types of music like this that I enjoy as well, where it's very chaotic all the time, riff after riff and genres and things like that, and that's cool for us. We really like to play something that sounds technical, but that you can still kind of feel a backbeat at times, or still just kind of bob along, so it's not just for quote unquote like a musician's audience. It's tries to have a wider appeal like that. And so like Synapse Misfire and A Decision Was Made to a degree are both have these technical elements to it, but it's still trying to put something behind it to where you can latch on to something kind of accessible in that sense.
No, yeah, and I think what you're saying is like you want to be technical, but you also want to be accessible for people who are not musicians to like it,
Yeah.
and not just like a certain type of people. So yeah, I think the album has a good flow to it. And what are what are the themes that you cover in this record? Because it's interesting. I even like I think the album title is very interesting. At Mechanical Fiction. What to you is the like the major themes in this record?
So the themes are kind of difficult ones. On the previous album, we dealt kind of with more existential themes, kind of societal collapse and climate, quite literally climate things and things like that, and also a lot of stuff local to St. Louis too, our hometown, both kind of socially and politically. This one was a little more personal for me, dealing with some personal friends and family that struggled with mental illness type things, and the things that kind of go into that. When people are having troubles in their life, whether it's friends, family, or personal, trying to empathize with them in a way and try to understand why sometimes people make very difficult decisions. Um, so that's kind of the crux of the whole album is getting to understand this, how people kind of get to the point that they feel that they don't have a choice in certain things, um, and approaching that from not a sense of grief or sadness, although there is that, but of just truly understanding and empathizing with them, so that if you have some tragedy in your life, you can hopefully reach out to others around you and kind of understand and communicate with them, so that they understand that they have options available to them.
Yeah. Was it harder for you to write about something more personal this time?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was tough. It was definitely something where I had to balance, how much of my personal, life I wanted to put into this music and even talking about it. But also being true to myself and what I was like feeling at the time when I wrote. It's kind of interesting. I actually wrote most of the lyrics, almost all of them actually, a long time ago, kind of pre-pandemic, which ended up being kind of interesting because some of the themes of isolation and kind of loneliness and stuff like that became even more kind of prescient as things went on. So that there might be some things like, oh, I can see where this came from with maybe the pandemic type stuff, but in reality, just kind of came all before that. So yeah, so it definitely was difficult in kind of getting in touch with those things, and then also looking back on having this time period in between everything. Um, Now looking back and being in different places with friends, family, relationships, all that stuff, and thinking back like, oh, okay, that's where I was at this point in time in my life, and still feeling a connection with those things, but also having seen like personal growth and stuff like that is it's challenging, but at the end, I wanted to be kind of true to myself in representing these things and not necessarily shy away from that stuff in putting it into the music.
So in a way, every album is like a snapshot of like a picture of what you were going through at that time. Uh, so yeah, it's very. I think it's a relatable record, and I think anyone can understand. Everyone has some issues in their lives and things that happen, some more than others. But yeah, so let's look at the artwork. So here's
Hmm.
the artwork for Mechanical Fiction from the Gorge. And what exactly does this artwork represent?
So this is done by Jamie Braywick. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly. We actually only spoke over the internet, so I don't know if I got his. But he goes by B-Side Graphics on Instagram. Interestingly, we found him because as we've talked about in some other things and other press, we're big jazz fans, and some of us actually kind of work as working musicians and jazz musicians. And Jamie does a lot of modern jazz records. I think I saw a couple albums that he did for the trumpet musician Nicholas Payton, um, and he did this kind of like retro vintage style of kind of classic Blue Note albums that just really stuck out to me, and I thought that would be a cool kind of aesthetic to have going with a metal album. So we didn't quite go as this classic B side, or I'm sorry, Blue Note record vibe, but we kind of talked to him about the concept of the album, this kind of isolation, daily life type thing, and this is what he came up with, and it just kind of he had a couple different designs for us, and this one was just kind of I don't know had a very simple concept to it, but when we saw it, we're like, that's the one.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a window, and the sun's coming in through it a little
Right,
bit.
right. Yeah, it can
Uh,
be that a portal, a window, or any kind of like you don't know what's on the other side type thing. It's very very open to uh, interpretation on that, which we thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's open to interpretation. So, I know that you have those free singles released, but what like is there like a song in this album that for you really represents the album as a whole? Like, which one for you is your favorite as of today?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me think about that. Hmm. I really like. I still come back to kind of Beneath the Crust is kind of the one. Even though it's the oldest one, it is definitely a favorite. Um, Partially to kind of play in that way, and I think the other one that wasn't released as a single would probably be Earthly Decay, which is a nice one. I like that one a lot because it is one like in the songwriting process for us. A lot of it comes from kind of classic metal rock band stuff where we come in with riffs or ideas and things like that. So myself and Joe Bowers, the other guitar player, will come in sometimes with full songs, each one of us. Sometimes we'll have some ideas, and then we'll collaborate together. And that one is a nice, perfect kind of collaboration where Joe had the main riff ideas, the intro and the chorus and things like that. But then we kind of needed some extra stuff on that, so we all kind of got together and was like, well, let's kind of put this longer middle section in, and then let's end it with the kind of this heavy riff, kind of the double bass faster riff, and that for me is just a good representation of kind of like everybody's contribution to the band, um, and making it bigger, the greater than the some of the parts type thing. Where okay, cool. Um, this started as a very organic idea, and then everything in this is a perfect encapsulation of kind of our sound and our musical identity.
So yeah, that was an interesting one, and I thought the album as a whole was pretty interesting, and I like a lot of the guitar in it because there's like a lot of like psychedelic guitars to it, and spacing in the songs.
Yeah.
Uh, so working on this, when did you record this? Was this after pandemic times that you recorded this?
So we started before. We started in 2018 with primary tracking, and that initially went really quick. And then we ran into a couple snags. So I actually ran into some issues vocally where I thought I had kind of injured myself for a while, screaming improperly. Uh, Turns out it wasn't that. It just happened to be acid reflux, which was kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny, but also like, okay, I guess this is something. It's a kind of a common thing, I guess, for vocalists if you get some of the the acid going up on the. So that kind of slowed the vocals down for a minute as I was kind of trying to figure that out. Funny enough, it's like turns out I just needed to take a couple Tums and Prilosec, I guess.
Or probiotics, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, lay off the spicy food for a minute. Um, so that kind of slowed things down, and then pandemic happens, so we weren't quite finished with it at that time, and all everything as we know shut down and all that stuff. So we were kind of in limbo for a minute, and then things were like, okay, well, I think we can kind of safely get back into the studio and do some things. And still kind of took some time, and we didn't have we weren't on Pelagic at the time. We were just kind of, well, let's see what happens, and we didn't quite know exactly what the future of the band looked like. Are we going to get out and play again? What's going on with this? Everybody's trying to navigate their lives, so it kind of just took a little bit of time. And then once we kind of like, hey, this is something that we should do and put out, and let's kind of get on it. And we finally finished it. Gosh, what is it now? A couple years ago. What is it? 2023. 2020, 2021, I think, is when we finally got it completely finished, and then kind of sat on it for a while, and didn't know quite what to do, and then kind of had the communication back and forth with Pelagic, and turned out they wanted to put it out, and we are very happy for that. So it worked out.
How did that? How did you get on Pelagic Records? How did they contacted you, or did you contact them?
So we did a tour with the Ocean back in 2016, and got to know them then, and we had some communication around then, about possibly working together, but it just didn't quite work out at that time, and kind of kept in touch a little bit, but just kind of kept on doing our own thing. And we were about to release this album. We were sort of like, well, let's just put it out. We've had these songs forever. We'll self-release again. And right before we were about to do that, I'm like, let me send one more email. Let me reach out to Robin at Pelagic one more time, and see if they have any interest. Just it's been a while, but all right. Sent him the album. He said, hey, we really like this. We'd love to put it out. And we're like, oh, great. Let's do it. So yeah, so it ended up working out. I'm kind of glad I sent the last email before we decided to self-release. So yeah, now here we are, and putting it out, and couldn't be happier.
Yeah, no, that's awesome that it happened that way. So I know that you work. So these songs, for everyone they're gonna be new, but for you they're old. Are you already working on new material at the moment?
Uh, in some way, yeah, we're kind of in that very early kind of hatching ideas stage of just kind of, hey, what you got something? Oh, that sounds cool. Let's do this. Right now, it's a lot of preparation for in terms of like rehearsal and practice of getting ready for we have a release show and we're gonna have a small tour announcement here in a second. So kind of getting these tunes, tight again and figuring out the set. But definitely kind of in this like germination stage of like what do we want our next album to sound like? And it's kind of that same thing where um, it's not going to be a drastic change, but we always like to push ourselves kind of further in kind of not a new direction, but just like how can we explore some different sounds and things like that. So personally, for me, from a kind of guitar nerd standpoint, I'm falling in love with detuned guitars again. We kind of do a thing in the Gorge where we do some strange tuning where most of our stuff is in standard tuning, but we'll tune our low E string down to various things like drop D or C or A, but keep everything else standard. And I'm kind of just feeling like tuning down really low again and playing some nasty riffs in kind of that low chug territory. So we'll see what it sounds like if it has a little darker, heavier sound in that sense when we kind of get in the true writing stage.
So when do you have the release show for the album?
So the release show is August 4th in St. Louis at Off Broadway music venue. We're playing with some great bands, our friends in The Lion's Daughter and Blight Future. Yeah, so the album comes out 7/28, and we'll have the release show a week later, and then very shortly, hopefully in the next day or so, we'll have some dates around that. Where we're heading to the East Coast a little bit, so we'll don't have everything quite in place just yet, but should literally, I think today or tomorrow we'll have those things kind of sorted out. But yeah, August 4th at Off Broadway in St. Louis, Missouri, we'll have the album, and we're gonna play the album almost in its entirety. We're leaving out one song. The
Yeah,
actually
which one are you leaving out and why?
funny enough, Mechanical Fiction, the title track, which is the instrumental track.
Oh yeah, that's like a 2 minute
Yeah,
track that
yeah,
goes into.
it's like we've done that actually in the past where we've had these little interlude type songs, and it's funny that we said like let's put the Mechanical Fiction on this one, even though it's the title of the album. It just kind of fit with this kind of like it has a very kind of robotic's not the right word, but this static feel. It's another one of those words. It's this kind of one idea that gets developed over a point of time. But we may play it, we may not. That's kind of one of those might just be like an album only type
Yeah.
thing. Part of it is because it's hard and I have to relearn it. So
Or if not, you could have it like when you're getting to hit the stage, you can put that song as like when you're getting to the stage,
our little intro music. Yeah, I like that.
like an intro music, exactly,
Yeah.
and then you can play the rest of the album. So yeah, I really enjoyed the album. I think it's great, and I like it that it's it's heavy, but it also has like time to breathe in the songs, and it has like psychedelic undertones to the music. So I think anyone who likes prog metal, like all those bands that we mentioned, the Mastodons, the Between the Buried and Me, the Botch, should enjoy this record. So, Phil, anything else that we can expect from the Gorge in the near future?
Just kind of pushing this album. We're gonna get it out there, and hopefully, as many people can check it out as possible and enjoy it. We'll keep playing some shows. We'll be doing some kind of regional stuff throughout the Midwest, and then this little East Coast run that we're gonna have here. Yeah, and then hopefully I'll get writing on this new album here, and looking forward to putting out new music sooner than later. Definitely not the 7 year period here. Kind of a Tool-esque album cycle here with not quite the same level.
Yeah, no,
So
for Tool, it needs to be like for 15 years
yeah, exactly.
to put out an album. So, Phil, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with me about the Gorge and the upcoming record. I'll put the link in the description for people who want to pre-order it. They can do it. It's going to be in LP, vinyl, different variants, so they can get it and support the band. And on August the 4th, if you're in St. Louis, go check out the band in their release show. Should be fun. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.